You're listening to Real Investor Radio with Fuhr and Jack BeVier, where we cover advanced real estate investing topics to help you stay ahead of the curve in your real estate investing business. Hey, welcome back, everyone, to Real Investor Radio. I'm Fuhr, joined again by my good friend Jack BeVier. Jack, it is an exciting day. You just hit me with a Teams this morning that blew my mind on some new lending products that we're doing here at Dominion, and I'll be getting out to a bunch of folks today regarding that. Very exciting stuff. So, how you doing, man?
I'm doing great.
You were up early, and that big brain of yours is working overtime.
Yeah, man. We had a lot of stuff going on. Things were very busy. I'm excited. We got a big push between now and the end of the year. We've redesigned a whole bunch of things in the lending company. And then the real estate side of things is going pretty well, actually. So I don't know. I'm a lot more optimistic than I was 6 months ago. I'll tell you that much. So that's
what's
more
going
fun.
on. What's going on in the real estate company that's exciting for you?
Just like we haven't seen values soften that much, and so we're making money on the stuff that we're flipping. There's like threats of interest rates coming down, so I guess I'm just kind of optimistic that the inflation report came out yesterday. We're recording this on May 16th. An inflation report came out yesterday that was not great, but at least not up. And so at least, it may be like a long glide path down, in my opinion. I still am not a believer in rate cuts this year, but but at least we're seeing some progress in the right direction of inflation eventually coming down, which should mean that eventually we'll see mortgage rates coming down too. Yeah. And so I'm still excited to be adding real estate to our portfolio, and then in the meantime we're making money on the flips that we're doing, so having a good time.
Well, it is an interesting time indeed. I just paid $7 this morning at Starbucks for my coffee, Jack, and I noticed that yesterday they just took coffee out of the CPI index. I guess because coffee is rising at such an insane rate right now. They didn't want to let us know that coffee was, just take that out, take housing out, take energy out. Everything else is easy after that, right? So we got a cool guest on today, Jack. By the way, I think we are 51 episodes into this thing, Jack. Who would have ever thought?
Yeah, it's crazy, man. It's flying fast, and having a good time, and having a really, really good time. The thing that I didn't really appreciate about this is how it would kind of force us to reconnect with guys who I'd love speaking to, and really enjoy the conversations, and just give us an opportunity to talk for a long time about stuff and dig deep into how they got to where their businesses are and the challenges that they're seeing right now. And that's just always very both rewarding and fun, and helps me in our business. So crazy that we've done 51 of these things, and we're not slowing down. So keep doing it.
No one loves talking shop more than Jack BeVier. No one. You've told me that so many times. So go ahead and introduce our guest today, and let's jump in.
Yes. So speaking of which, we've got Tarry Summers on today. I've had the great pleasure of hanging out with Tarry in the Mastermind Real Investor Roundtable that we put together. And Tarry's out of the Columbus market. Super interesting dude. Does stuff very differently than how I approach a lot of parts of the business. Frankly, because he's a much different personality, much more charismatic, much more handsome than I am, and so he's got a whole different set of tools that he uses to set up his shop, and I really enjoy listening to how he's built his business. So Tarry, hey, thanks a lot for joining us today, man. It's great to see you.
I that's probably the best intro I've ever gotten, and I will take it. I will take it, man.
That's why.
Great
that's
work,
why I threw it over to Jack.
Love it. Thanks for having me, guys. I appreciate it.
Man, welcome to the show. Yeah, it's great to have you. I was just checking out your LinkedIn last night, and you are quite the serial entrepreneur, my friend. From real estate to owning gyms. You're a speaker. We've got to jump into the brewery that you started at some point. Maybe spend a minute and a half talking about that. But you got your hand in a lot of things, man.
Yeah, man. I used to be that guy that wanted to have his hands in all these different things, and I was great at none of them besides single family real estate in blue collar neighborhoods. That was I bought the same house over and over and over, was successful doing that. And I'm like, yeah, let's start a brewery. I got 4 college buddies. They like drinking beer. I love craft beer. Let's this sounds like a great idea. And I'm like, I'm a
It's
fitness
easy.
guy, I want to get back into fitness and, own some gyms. That sounds pretty cool. Failed at two of those. The brewery was a massive failure. Yeah, I lost a lot of money, man. Had I not invested in real estate and had the equity build up, I probably would have went bankrupt from the brewery or the two other gyms. But we got one gym that survived. It's actually doing
So
extremely well now. But yeah,
in Baltimore, we have these old firehouses, and they're beautiful buildings. In generally, like there used to be the one fire truck that could pull in, or maybe the two that would pull in right in front of one another.
yeah,
So they're very narrow and very long. And Jack, at some point, you and Fred bought one of those, didn't you? And operated out of it for a while. And then didn't you sell the building at some point, or you leased it to a father son team who wanted to do a brewery?
Yeah, Terry, maybe a similar story. So we bought this firehouse. Fred bought this firehouse way back in the day. Gorgeous building, just like
Beautiful.
beautiful, like piece of history, like, really nice, well maintained firehouse. And
yep,
it was being used by, I think it was an architecture firm that was occupying it at the time. We bought it, and then we tried to lease it forever, um, and struggled with it. And then we were like, hey, you know what? Let's start a real estate brokerage and lease it to the real estate brokerage. Try to get a title company in there too. And then it was 2 blocks down the street from our office, so we'll just go down there for
okay,
closings and like hang out with the real estate agents and like create this whole little ecosystem, right? And so we did that for a while, and worked with a couple REO agents as like partners in that real estate brokerage. But it was like we owned the building, so the business, and we owned a piece of the business, and the business was leasing the building. And after a number of years, that like it just wasn't working out. Like there wasn't guess what, there wasn't a whole lot of money in brokerage. Also competing with like the nationals, that idea like fizzled out. And then so we leased it. We put it up for lease again, and a restaurant. We got a restaurant going there. Actually, a small brewery, just like family run brewery,
hmm,
and they made a go of it for 5 years or so. And then I think eventually COVID put the final nail in that coffin. And we sold it. Sorry, we sold it to that restaurant, and so that restaurant bought the building from us, and we would just go down there, and I'd go to the bar as often as I could to drink beer and just try to support this situation. But
Yeah, yeah.
COVID kind of put a
keep
nail
it
in that,
paying.
final nail in that coffin. But yeah, man, and then after that experience, I think we sold the building and like got our money back basically. And I was like ecstatic, like, and I was like, you know what? I'm a residential real estate investor. I don't know what the hell I'm doing on the commercial side. It shows, right? Like clearly we've just fumbled through this and then like tripped and fallen our way into like not losing money somehow. But yeah, man. So like the commercial side of things is always, I've tried it and failed and tried it and failed and just gone back to resi.
Yeah, like for me, man. I mean, we leased this we leased this space. It was it because breweries are typically in downtown revitalization neighborhoods. It's got to be in that
Mhm.
cool hipster little area. And we tried to be like the NFL of craft breweries. We were trying to go out to the suburbs, had like all this like very how do I put it? Because most breweries, it's like that element of cool. It's like it's obscure, it's
Yeah, yeah.
weird, and that's what kind of makes it. It gives it that element of cool, I
Sort
guess.
of
And for us,
industrial and esoteric.
yeah,
Yeah.
man. And for us, we were trying to do the complete opposite and be like the mainstream thing. And because of that, that was like mistake number one because people don't want to drink craft beer that's mainstream. You want to drink the weird, obscure, stuff that you're never going to get. Um, Gosh, I could give a number of excuses why it didn't work. Ultimately, it falls on my shoulders. But the day we actually opened was February 5th or February 15th of 2015, and yeah, the building it came out in Columbus Business First that day that the whole complex was in foreclosure. We're talking a
Oh,
$300 million complex in foreclosure. We're the anchor tenant, so naturally things are in foreclosure. People don't really show up. Also, who was running our kitchen was this other restaurant in that complex. Well, the owners of the building were 51% owners in that restaurant. They shut that restaurant down. So we had no food the day that we opened. And I'm like, you got to be kidding me. And we had to go through like the court appointed receiver. We had to go through the property management company. The bank that was out of Europe, and we had to get 9 different signatures to do anything. So we survived for like a year without any food out in the suburbs in a very family friendly area, and just drowned in debt. But we had to keep paying rent. We had to keep
Right.
making loan payments. Yeah, it was not a good time. It was not fun.
Well, let's jump into real estate, and we'll get out of beer until 5 o'clock this afternoon, Jack. And let's talk some real estate. Let's talk about what you're doing with Jack. Remarkably, the house behind him looks like every single house in Parkville, Maryland. Another sort of blue collar place where I know we cut our teeth in rehabbing, and so yeah, man, jump in, Jack. Where do you want to go?
Yeah,
Yeah, what? Go ahead, Terry. Go ahead.
no, I was going to say, where I live, it's literally like 2 minutes away from downtown, and it's in
Mhm.
this little school district. It's like an A+ school district. There's like 15 kids per class, but you're downtown in like 2 minutes. And so you don't get a lot of house around here, but like you pay a premium for location. But I don't know. I like it around here. It's fun.
What
We can
kind of
walk anywhere
houses
we
are
want
you
to go.
buying? Yeah, what kind of houses are you buying in Columbus? Like, what's your
So
prototypical stuff that you like to buy? What price point? What are the rents? What are the bed bath square footage of your build? All that stuff.
yeah, for sure. So our buy box is over 675 square feet. We want at least 2 bedrooms, 3 if we can get it. Typically, the house is built after World War II. I like post World War II construction, not the old stuff. We do no well and septic in our buy box. We don't. If it's, I always say built in the neighborhood by a builder, because then you like if you have that, you kind of get yourself out of these hodgepodge houses that Joe built
Sure.
back in the 50s. Has been built onto 74 different times. But for us, man, like we have a lot of like those 3 bed, 1 bath ranches. We have a lot of that 1970s built stuff, which, you can still go to Home Depot, get all your doors, all that types of stuff. But I'm a huge proponent of buying trophy properties every once in a while because those things appreciate way more than the other stuff. So when cash is heavy, like go buy a couple trophy properties, hang on to them for 3 or 4 years, and that way when you sell them off, there's always those quick pops of a couple $100,000, just as long as you can hang on. So I'm not the guy that's like, hey, this is everything that we do, because I think you need to splice in some of those appreciation properties to be able to keep the train going.
Man,
So what
how's your
is?
I'm
Go
sorry,
ahead.
Jack. How's your philosophy changed? So when did you do your first real estate investment deal? You remember what year that was?
Gosh, yeah, 2000, June of 2010, I bought a FHA house, put like 5 G's down. I saved up another four to do the rehab, and I was doing all the rehab myself. It was my girlfriend and a couple buddies that were living in the property helping me pay the mortgage. And that was, that was, holy smokes, 14 years ago. So I'm old.
Still,
But then I realized you couldn't put like 3.5% down on every house, and you had to put 20% down with a community bank.
yeah.
And that was like, oh man, thought I found the wealth code, but I didn't. Like, you have to actually come up with cash to buy these things. But yeah, I did. Once I figured out you could pull out your money tax free and still keep the asset, your payment doesn't really change a whole hell of a lot. If you're paying 4 or 5%, it was like light bulb moment. Like, dude, how many of these things can I buy?
Yeah, so talk about that. Like, I think there's a lot of people. Jack and I, fancy the podcast as this isn't a how-to, right? We like to talk to guys like you who are advanced in the game and really go into advanced topics. But what I love talking about is talking to the person who's listening, who is at that like 25 houses. They're still trying to kind of put their whole sort of buying philosophy
Hmm.
together, still trying to figure out the capital game, and you know did you always have this sort of philosophy back then, where we have a beltway that goes around Baltimore City? It's just a circle, and I've always said that if you're just inside or just outside that circle, you're going to be in a great, venerable blue collar neighborhood, great first time starter houses. You're not way out in the burbs, but you're in safe, good school neighborhoods. Is that sort of always been your philosophy, or has that evolved over time?
Yeah, for sure. It definitely evolves. When those things get too expensive, you have to pivot. So for me, I call it path of progress. So it used to be school district. I wanted to be. There's a couple of different school districts. I'm like, I only buy in the school district. The one thing I've learned over time though is just because I think it's a good school district doesn't mean it's a good school district. Um,
Sure.
typically, where people grow up, they kind of want to stay, whether it's their kids or, and this just happened. I processed this probably 5 or 6 years ago, but just because you think it's a bad area, well, that person needs to drop their kids off at their grandma's house or their mom's house to be able to then go to work, and they kind of want to stay around there. So, different locations mean different things to different people. Um,
Sure.
and it doesn't mean that every area is a bad neighborhood. The other thing I look for too is like cranes. I want to be in a residential neighborhood where I can physically see the cranes because I know that it's coming, right? Like, I mean, you look for little signs. Like, I don't want to be the first person to kind of go into a neighborhood. I want to see that first, two or three house flips. As soon as I see those pink doors or, those gentrification numbers going up, I'm going all in.
Well, so what kind of stuff do you like to like? What are numbers today in Columbus? Like, what are you buying houses for? Like, what do you consider like
Yeah,
the sweet spot for like just solid median rental deal?
yeah. So we put two in contract yesterday. Property on Fairwood Avenue for anyone listening that is from Columbus. We're buying it for 135,000. It's from an older landlord. The older landlords typically replace furnaces, roofs, the mechanical stuff. Mechanically sound. We'll probably throw 15 grand into it. We'll rent it for 1700. I know that property is worth 200. It's not a home run deal, but I think it's in path of progress. I think that deal in 3 years would be worth 250. So if we're buying it for 135 in 3 years, we're basically doubling our money. I think that's a great deal. Um, Another one we bought for 98,000. We'll put another 40 grand into it. It'll be worth 200,000. The rent on that will probably be 1,600, and that's a three-bedroom, one bath. So I'm still finding deals that can go to owner occupancy, can go as rentals, and I'm
Hmm.
still trying to play the cash flow game. But one of the things with Columbus is, we used to be this massive cash flow market, and we're just not anymore. We're turning into a flip market because Columbus has kind of cannibalized all these other cities. Your Limas, Toledo's, all these small manufacturing towns are dying. And where are these kids going to go? They want to come to Columbus because you got Ohio State here, you've got the Intel plant, you've got Nationwide, Wendy's, all these major corporations. So we have a ton of jobs, and it's cool, vibrant, hip city. So. Um, yeah, that's kind of my sweet spot, man.
So what did numbers look like pre-COVID? Like where were you in 2018?
Yeah.
Was it a heavier
Shit.
cash flow market? What did
Pre-COVID, we were buying deals. Yeah, pre-COVID, we were buying deals for probably 60 to 90 grand, putting probably 20 to 30 into them, and they would appraise out at about a buck 50. But we've had this
what were the
massive run up
rents?
ever since COVID. Uh,
What were the rents on
right around
those?
1100,
Okay, so
1200.
you've seen a run up in both rents and values. Like not you've gotten it on both sides for the stuff that you kept in the portfolio.
For sure, for sure. I think the biggest issue that I'm having is that my values are going up way faster than the rents. So it's making much more sense to sell stuff than hang on to it. Case in point, I bought a duplex, Path of Progress. I owned a bunch of houses on this one street on South Champion Avenue here in Columbus, and it was a duplex. Which I'm not a huge fan of duplexes because you still got to cut the grass and do all the crap that you got to do with apartments with pest control, all that junk. But so I held on to it, bought it for 70,000, put 40,000 into it. It appraised out at the time, I think, like 160, and this is 2020. Um, that deal today, we're going to sell off for 375,000.
Awesome.
So
So
it makes
how many
no
of you
sense to get 1,200. It makes no sense to get $1,200 a month per side when you can sell for 375.
Yeah. Interest rates aside, just the cash on cash is just not that great anymore. So have you started to do that? Have you
Yeah.
started to sell off the rental portfolio and like shift your pipeline more towards retail than rental?
Um, no, man. I mean, I'm a residential guy. Like the commercial side, like even my gym building, I like seeing the vision and trying to take something. I'm not good at that. Like if there's a repeatable process, which the residential business is, I'm good at that part. But um, yeah, like for me, man, like I'm investing in the stock market, and then I have two buddies that's actually started a small hedge fund here. Ironically, it was one of the guys was my old college roommate, so I'm pretty stoked for him. But it's getting, annualized, 16 to 18%. and has, with the exception of 2 years ago. Um, so for me, it's like, okay, where can I get the most amount of return at all times? And so if I'm taking money and then let's say that deal on South Champion, we'll pull out 250 grand out of that deal. I want to put it into a vehicle that's going to earn a high rate of return, and then be able to have liquidity and borrow back out to 6.5%. And then buy more real estate and just, so I feel like I'm kind of trading right now and just making sure that I'm super liquid, making sure that, I'm not getting, uh, too concentrated either in real estate or liquidity, if that makes sense. I feel like I'm just like trading real estate at this point.
So you're mixing like your real estate, the money you're making in real estate, putting it into other stuff besides real estate as well.
Yeah, for sure. Um, like I've never been a stock market guy or, yeah, real estate people are typically like anti-market, but once I understood it and understood liquidity, banks look at that type of stuff. You can act quickly. You can go into a bank and basically write your own check if you're liquid. Um, that was kind of a game changing moment about 3 or 4 years ago for me. I'm like, dude, I don't have to like finagle my bank statements. I don't have to like keep all this money in here on the 31st and then, print off my bank statements, then liquidate, on the first. Just that whole game you got to play to continue to get financing. Once I realized that once you have cash, that you don't have to do that, it just made it so much easier.
So you're in like well, it was a high cash flow market, and like I would say that prior to 2017, like the institutions weren't even in Ohio yet. Now, obviously, like 2018 plus, like they went there, and you've got now some like major institutions buying all over Ohio at this point. But like, how did you make that transition from house hacking with some buddies, putting 3.5% down to, do you have a job at the time, or was that what you were doing? Like, and like,
Yeah.
talk
So
to me about like that transition. Like, how'd you take it from just like your first deal into like your full-time job?
I was working in the fitness industry at the time, and in like the personal, and basically selling personal training. And when you sell personal training, you got to be there at 5 a.m. You got to be there late at night, but you had the middle of the day to kind of work out or go run errands or whatever. Was making good money, um, like great sales job. Was making good money. I was just there all the time. And so when I bought that first piece of real estate and realized like, dude, I could probably like my thing was 10 grand a month. I'm like, well, if I can collect enough $400 a month checks, like that's 10 grand a month. And like most people, that's kind of the number, 10 grand a month. Like, dude, if I can just get like 25 of these houses, man, I'm gonna be set forever. Not thinking about like CapEx and all this other stuff. But for me, I almost gamified it. I'm like, dude, every 15 or 20 grand I can save up, I know that that's a down payment on a rental property that's going to spit out $400 to $500 a month cash flow. And for 4 years, I just gamified it. So I bought that first house. The next three I bought with 20% down and kind of figured out the rehab. I did a cash out refi to then buy another one. My seventh deal, I discovered hard money. Guys at, I think it was called Autumnwood. And I'm like, holy smokes, I only put 10% down and they fund the rehab. That was like a game changer. Um, and then I found a community bank that was doing 100% financing. They did 100% financing on 3 deals. So that was a little cheat code there. But I literally went through the phone book, like the actual yellow pages, and just called every local bank that I've never heard of, and finally found this one in Louisville, Ohio, man. And they're like, yeah, we'll go ahead and we'll fund the purchase and we'll fund the rehab. I'm like, holy smokes. And we can go up to, I think they could do $300,000 worth of deals with one.
We got you. Yep.
So for me, it was like that. It was like, I don't know, just gamified it, man. And then after that, I had 16 when I left my fitness job, and then I realized that that wasn't going to cut it for life. So I left that fitness job. I went to Chase Bank, which is like the most dependable W-2 job you can get, because I wanted to continue to get financed for rental properties. But headset, cubicle, 10 hours a day just wasn't for me, and I hated it. So I ended up I did 16 deals, 16 single family deals, a triplex, and got all this stuff in contract and got like three different local community banks to finance them all. And then I closed on all of them on Wednesday and Thursday, and then left my job on that Friday. It was April 12th, 2013, 12:06 p.m. It's a great day.
Shock.
Great day. I drank a lot of craft beer that weekend.
shot, and you became a house collector overnight. So then, were these all like turnkeys, or all of these required rehab to
No,
stabilize?
there was a couple that like legacy tenants that I was able to ride out. There was a couple that were turnkey, but for the most part, these were rehabs. You had to go in and, but I was always a cosmetic rehab. I never wanted to do big, heavy lift rehabs. I mean, you got to think the people that I knew, these are my buddies that's helping me paint and do maintenance and all that stuff. So anything that was, basically above their pay grade, I knew I couldn't buy the house because I didn't have the crews or the know-how or the people and the resources to do them. So anything that was just heavy cosmetic, that's what I focused on. And even today, I mean, you hear it all the time. Investors want cosmetic rehabs because they're just so easy to do. I mean, you can get in and out of them in 30, 45 days.
And so when did you always add into the rental portfolio? You're not really flipping at this time. You doing any wholesaling yet? And how are you finding? And by the way, how are you finding deals? Or was it just like, hey, it's Columbus in 2014, you could find deals? You can go in the MLS.
Yeah, back then, yes, you could, but yeah, it was a lot of wholesalers, realtors. One of the things I used to do is I would just call 5 realtors a day between owning the brewery and the gym and all these other things I had my hands in. Like, dude, if I just call 5 realtors a day, they'll go and find me the deals. And I was always looking for the hungry realtors. You don't want to go to the best realtor. You want to find the realtors that need to make a paycheck. They're going to go out and work harder. So I would just make a habit to call 5 realtors a day. And even today, we have a couple different ways that we're finding deals. I mean, wholesalers, we keep track of every deal that comes through any email or Facebook. And then we ask one question. We ask, when does this need to close by? Then we go back and then we look at those dates. So if it needs to close by, say, May 31st, well, a week before that, we're saying, hey, is this deal still available? If it's available, we know that the wholesaler's under the gun. We're going to be able to negotiate that purchase price. Um, so we're tracking those that way. We do a 25, what I call 25-to-1 strategy. So every 25 deals that we throw or every 25 offers that we throw on the MLS, we want to try to get one accepted. Um, and that still works. You find someone, you're either first or you're last to the deal. And if something's been sitting for say 50 days and they're just done with it, sometimes they take your offer. So we do that. I did about 4 years ago, we had the in-house marketing. We had 6 acquisition guys, um, running data, running ads, doing direct mail, doing cold calling, all that stuff. I mean, it was fun, but the overhead that we had at that time, like, I don't know, I'm just in a different place now where I don't want to have extreme overhead and then have to worry about, are we going to take this deal down or are we going to have to wholesale this and having your team members get pissed because they're only getting 3 grand on a deal instead of you flipping it and making, 40 grand and then getting 5. I don't know. I'm trying to like remove complexity from this business. And when I go back and look at it, when I first got into it, there was a couple things that I did well. I made relationships with the connectors, had them go out, source the deals, make those relationships, keep those relationships good. And throughout this evolution, it's like I'm doing the same things that I did 10 years ago.
Jack,
It's just,
Jack, talk about that philosophy, because I've always had sort of a similar mentality as Terry, is that never really had any employees when I was doing my flips, had reliable contractors, fair access to capital that I needed, and never really wanted to grow the machine that had to be fed. I didn't want to have to do 3 deals a month to pay for the machine, and then everything after that was okay. And but Dominion, you and Fred have obviously developed a platform where you have quite a few employees on the property side. And so just talk about that philosophy switch, Jack, like the difference there.
Yeah. I think that I don't think that one's better than the other by a
Right.
long shot, right? Like, it does not, like, we did not, you do not grow. I think, and I definitely think there's like a mentality or an assumption that like, oh, once I get to that level, then I'll be happy, or and then I need to get that level and then I'll be happy.
Right.
But like, your quality of life does not improve as you scale. It's just you just trade one set of problems for a different set of problems for a different set of problems. And like, frankly, but frankly, that's kind of the reason that we do that, is because I just got we just get bored, right? Like Fred and I just get bored at a certain level. And then we're like, let's go try to do this, let's go try to do a multifamily, right? Like we have 800 properties. Like we're doing a 45 unit in West Downtown Baltimore, a 14 unit federal tax credit and historic preservation deal that because we've never done it before, right? Like, are those 14 units going to like change my life? Absolutely not. But I've never done a federal historic tax credit deal, so I want to go do one. We're doing a multifamily new construction deal because I've never done one before, and that's kind of it. Like that's because I wanted a new set of problems to work on. So I think that I certainly don't think that like anyone's lifestyle changes once they get to a certain scale or whatever, right? It's just which problem you just choose the problems that you want. Like, which set of problems do you want to deal with every day?
That might be, Jack, one of the most incredible takes that I think we've ever had on the podcast. That I think there's so many people. We talk to guys. Almost every guy that we've talked to who's a property owner, investor on the podcast is a guy who owns a few hundred properties plus, and there seems to be this prevailing philosophy amongst maybe the listeners that if I get to 250, my life is so much better. My quality of life is better. I got people who, personnel working for me now that is handling the acquisition and the disposition. And I've got, a real marketing budget. But I think your take is one of the most truthful, Jack, that I think I've ever heard in terms of that philosophy.
Terry, one of the things that you mentioned that really kind of struck home with me was that, and resonated with me, was that the way that you built the business early on was I called 5 realtors a day. Just every day. And you're an extroverted, charismatic guy, so I'm sure that that works well for you, right? But that strategy of connecting with people and building your network is important. But it's not that you're extroverted that made you and charismatic that made you successful. It's that it was the consistency of it, that you called 5 realtors every day and you did that in and out, every day. And then over the course of time, that effort compounds, and that the snowball just gets bigger and bigger. But the snowball doesn't get bigger unless you keep rolling it every single day, right? Like, does that ring true to you?
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, is that something that you does that ring true to you? Is that feel like part of the way that you built the machine early on?
Yeah, man. So I feel like if in this business, if you're gonna continue on, people have to know you all the time. If people know that you're buying and they know that you're legit and you're doing business and you're keeping the snowball rolling, as you say, you're going to continue to get more business. It's momentum. Momentum is a real thing. Momentum with relationships, with people knowing what you're doing out in the market. But if you go out to a dinner or something like that, and there's a bunch of realtors there or wholesalers or real estate investors, and you haven't done a deal in the last 6 months, they're not you're non-existent. So you have to continue to be relevant, and that's why social media is so powerful. I do content creation 2 hours a week every Wednesday from 2 to 4. And I don't even know what the hell goes on social media, but people scroll and they look at it, and it continues to make you at least relevant. So that way when deals pop up or conversations are had, you're the first one they think of. And yeah, I mean, it's so simple, man. It's just building relationships, keeping and maintaining those relationships, and just putting it out there what you need. I put out an email yesterday, Jack. I said, I'm looking for deals. Please send to me ... And it's amazing. We've got 16 responses. Hey, man, I haven't talked to you in forever. Here's some deals I got. It's just simple, dude.
Now, who does who would that email go out to in this case?
So that email will go out to all the realtor contacts we have, wholesaler, real estate investors, regular people. I'm sending that to 15,000 people. And it could be people in Arkansas that might have a wholesale business. I mean, we've bought deals from wholesalers all across the country, but they wholesale in Columbus, Ohio, because it's a hot market.
Sure.
So yeah, everybody.
Yeah, I feel like that. I drive that. There's a misconception, I think, amongst a lot of folks that with your marketing, you're going to convince someone to sell, right? I'm going to send a letter or a postcard, or I'm going to cold call somebody, and I'm going to get them on the phone, and then my salesperson is going to get them to sell the house to me because I'm going to provide a value proposition to them that is compelling and we're charismatic. And that frankly, it misses the point entirely. Like that's not what works. You're not going to convince someone to do anything. You just want to be in front of them when they come to the conclusion that they need to go
They
now
want to
take
make the
action.
decision.
100%.
So the consistency is like what wins that, right? And people burn out and within the first 6 months of sending direct mail, or within the first year of doing television or whatever, or first year of doing social media, because they're like, I'm not getting anything out of it. Like, they must not like me. I must not be good at this. I don't know. Self-doubt comes in. You get lazy because you're just tired of working for free, and you just stop. And 90% of the curve stops before they've earned real estate in people's brains, right? And like the consistency of just keeping that up, doesn't matter if it's good or bad or whatever, right? Like the yellow postcards fucking suck, right? Like they're not good marketing pieces.
They're not.
But you remember them, and so doesn't need to be great copy, in order to be consistency. Will is going to win over fancy content like every day, and the fact that you even like think about it that way still, right? Like we podcast on Wednesday between 2 and 4 p.m. That's when we do that. And if you just stick to that, right, like it starts to pay dividends over time, but over a long period of time.
Dude, it's like your career in real estate investing goes like this, right? Because especially if you're buying rentals, because you're always going to be broke, right? And it goes like this, and then eventually, like, your Rolodex gets so massive, compound interest starts working in your favor, and then you're just like, holy smokes! And you have a month where all this cash rolls in and cash flow, you have no problems, you've got deals flowing in, and you just start to go like this. But like, you have to weather that time. And for me, it was, 11 years before I really started to hit that, that kind of upward or parabolic, I guess, where like
Yeah.
I felt like it was easy. So, people that bitch after 3 years, like, dude, you can't bitch.
It's funny,
Sucks for a
Terry.
while.
If you give up in the first 10, you got into the wrong game in the first place.
Terry, you're a fitness guy.
Yeah.
You don't roll into the gym, day one and start to see results, and you don't see them after a month, and you probably don't even see them after 3, but after 6, you look in the mirror one day and you're like, holy shit, I my shoulders look better. My chest is getting bigger. I know I'm stronger. I can walk up steps now. I can skip steps. And I think that, to your point, Jack, I think you and Fred have always been sort of models of consistency and discipline. And Terry, and one of the things that I have found I've met investors all over the country, and I'm going to start a network of realtors, they say. And for most people, it's not easy to pick up a phone and just start having a conversation with a stranger. Just like if you go to a conference, it's not easy to just walk up to a group of people and say, hey, I'm a loan officer for Dominion. Send me some deals. And what I find is that there are a million investors out there who say they're going to start a network of realtors, and they make 3 calls. The 3 realtors set them up with a stupid search on the MLS, and it's all crap deals that you could have found yourself. But then you find that one. And what I love about what you're saying here is that, hey, I called 5 a day. 5 of them maybe didn't work out, but that 6th one was freaking awesome, And we spoke, Jack, remember our conversation with Austin Carroll where he talked about they were going to make like 10,000 calls, 10,000 connects in a month.
That was his jumpstart. Yeah.
That was his jumpstart as a realtor before he became an investor. And it was exponential, pretty grueling. But that 1 month of making 1,000 contacts a month, 10 people in a team making 10,000, jumpstarted his entire real estate investment career, or his realtor career. So yeah,
Dude, I love that. And eventually you find like you're 20 or you're 25, and then there's that core group of people. And even if you only do a couple deals a year with those 20, that's over 100 deals a year, man.
Yeah.
That's cooking. I don't care who you are, that's cooking. So yeah, and then you figure out, your vibe, what do they say? Your vibe attracts your tribe. You'll find the right people that, want to do business with you. They want to send you that deal first. But you got to go out there and make your contacts, man.
The one other thing you mentioned that made me think about this is you mentioned that you're the 25-1, that you guys are still making offers on MLS properties with the goal of making 25 offers, getting one. You're either first in or you're either the first one to the deal or the last one to the deal after everyone's passed it over and given up on it.
Ricky Bobby,
But
baby, you the first or your last.
Shake and bake, baby, shake and bake.
I'm wondering, like, because just watching stats nationwide, listings or listing inventory is creeping up, right? Because interest rates are still high. So despite those low, relatively low supply environment that we are still in, on a relative basis, listings are starting to creep up. And the thing that I'm seeing is that the good shit goes right away. Right? Like if it's right down the middle, it's renovated well, it's a 3-2, there's nothing fucked up about it, like that shit's gone. And that's still multiple offer situation. But if there's anything scratch and dent about it, the buyer, or like a little off about it, or the street, it's on a double yellow, like whatever, the buyer just doesn't want it, right? Because nothing's affordable right now. And so like if they're gonna make a stretched, unaffordable or like stretched business decision right now to borrow money at these rates and buy a house at these still high prices, they want what they want. Yeah. And if it's not perfect, they don't want it. And so I think like my sense is that inventory, this like kind of I'll call it scratch and dent inventory, is building up on the market. And hey, that stuff sometimes makes great rental properties, right? And so I'm wondering if that build up in inventory right now is that trend is continuing. And the MLS may start to be a place where it's, where we haven't been talking about that, for 5 years, but may start to be a source of deals once again as those like inventory levels of like stuff that's a little messed up get to, critical levels or, appropriate levels.
Here's what I'm seeing. Talking about scratch and dent, you know who's causing the scratch and dent inventory to go up? Piss poor flippers. And because the information's out there, everyone wants to go and be a house flipper. And like, there's so many of these properties, you look at them, they're like, dude, gray walls were out like 2 years ago. And then you look at the floor and you're like, dude, it's peel and stick. Like, spend the extra money and do hardwood. Like, if you're not separating yourself from other properties like that, that's one of the things I personally do. Like, for instance, we put flags on the front of our property. It's a $50 thing. You put a flag here. It's got the state of Ohio and then the city of Columbus flag. It's cool, kind of hip. It's $50. No one else does it, but like it's something that separates our properties. Paint your front door pink, or paint it, a light blue color. Just do stuff that's going to separate your property. It doesn't have to be something extravagant, but everything's looking the same, and you have to start. There's competition. You got to start separating yourself.
I call it the sizzle with the steak.
Yeah, I like that. But yeah, I think you're going to start seeing that continuous buildup of, I'll call it piss poor flipping.
Well, Terry, hey, I want to jump into the stuff that you guys are doing on, excuse me, on the social media side, on the group that you've put together. You've done a ton of cool shit to build your network and create, your tribe. Craig, let's cut this episode here and hop into that on the next episode.
All right, that's a good tease, Jack. We're starting to be real pros at this podcast thing, Terry. I hope you're noticing. So we'll wrap it up with Tarry Summers of Ohio Home, serial entrepreneur and all around great speaker, super charismatic guy. Terry, thank you for this one. We'll come back for the next one. This is Real Investor Radio. We'll see you on the next episode.